Name a white person, they'll have anxiety. Do you know what I mean? And if anything, it'll be being white that makes them anxious. Do you know what I mean? I just don't know how to deal with it. I can't take it. Fuck off.
So yeah, I did.
It's true though, isn't it? Just name me a white person who hasn't had anxiety. Do you know what I mean?
How's Brian doing?
Brian's had it. We've all had it. It went around. Do you know what I mean?
Hello, guys, and welcome to the Happy Hour podcast. Stevie's here.
Hello.
Alex
really
is
happy.
here.
Hello.
I'm never happy to introduce you.
Why?
I have to pay your train, and it's draining on me.
It's £45.
And talking about sidekicks, we're with
Will and E's sidekick. Great to see you guys.
No, that's me. Actually.
we're with Laurence McKenna. Laurence, how are you, mate? All right.
Good. It feels great to be in this little studio. I've watched this quite a lot. It looks smaller online.
Yeah.
It feels bigger when you're in here.
Yeah. What do you think of my grading?
Pretty good, actually. Your grading's better than others. Do you know what I mean? There are some
Really?
people really can't grade.
Yeah, you do it quite dark, don't you?
A lot of people were slagging me off for
Fits the theme, though, don't it?
because I make it blue and gloomy, and they were saying they couldn't
Do
see
you
anyone.
actually do that on purpose?
Yeah.
He's like, why?
I genuinely thought that you just took the file out and then you just...
No, I had
You
a blue.
grade that?
I'll tell you. I'll be honest. Right, a little look behind the
Finally.
curtain here. The reason that I put a blue grade on it is because when we done the JJ thing, I thought my beard is a bit ginger right now because I hadn't tinged it. I use a little tinger every now and then, Laurence.
In the beard?
Yeah, a little tinger.
a little dyer.
Wow,
yeah.
why?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not called a dyer.
Because he's ginger.
yeah, 'cause-
And my beard goes a little red. I just go, fuck it.
And my beard.
yeah, but you're but you're cooler than me. I've not got a lot going for me, so I have to like really try and.
No, I'll give him that. You are cooler than him.
I mean, we're really talking about sort of, tallest of the small people. Do you know what I mean? But I was thinking about this today. I was thinking if you want kids, do have kids.
Yeah.
She's going to get a fucking nasty surprise, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah. I fell in love with that. What the fucking hell is, yeah?
I mean, it's not going to be that much of a surprise.
Apparently, if you're ginger, the chances of having a ginger kid is 1 in 4. So my luck's in.
It's getting lower.
Well, the 8 kids you're going to have.
There's going to be 2
woman.
that go up for adoption
Yeah,
straight away. What was I going to say? Oh, no. Yeah, so that's it. So I had a little bit of a ginger fucking beard, like I have now, but worse. So I thought if I put blue on the video...
It looks like you put it in black and white. Like, it was dark.
I like that.
That's racist, because we had JJ on.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
Stevie.
exactly what I was going
Go
for.
for.
Stevie White is over. Party.
So why you
He
look
never
at me?
started.
Yeah. People don't even know he's on it.
Right, let's
I
get
thought you were a producer. Genuinely, I was sat there thinking it's lovely the way they let him sit in. That was really lovely.
It's
Yeah.
like what
Cameraman.
when Brian just took his seat. I said, "Why are you not moving, Brian?" He was like, "Because I'm going to be the next him."
Yeah.
But to be fair, I'll give it to Laurence.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this more already.
Nice.
I feel more natural where I am.
Yeah.
I felt weird just looking to my right all the time because I can't stand looking at you.
Plus, you
It's
said,
quite nice to be able to just look over
plus
here.
you said Brian was a cunt.
Yeah,
so-
massive cunt.
Get him back here and say it to his fucking face. We should
hell.
probably talk about Laurence. Laurence is the guest here.
No, you don't have to. I'm just sort of interested in the general conversation.
Just good to be out.
Yeah,
really,
yeah, it's
isn't it?
nice. Yeah.
You obviously have just come hot off of recording with the big man,
Yeah.
Ricky Gervais. How do you find that? Because he's a hero of yours, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's surreal, isn't it, when you sit in a room with one of your heroes? I mean, you must have this. And you're sitting there and you look at him and you're like, that's actually Ricky Gervais. Like, he's saying things to answer a question I've just asked him.
Yeah.
And you want to make the most of it. But there's also moments where you just think, is this like the Guardian podcast he made? Is it as good as the Guardian podcast he used to make? Because I used to love his podcast for the whole reason that I was like, wow, podcasting is cool.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it when I started a podcast years and years and years ago before we had the big True Geordie podcast.
Yeah.
That people didn't know what a podcast was. Because to me, it's been like podcasts have always been a thing.
He's been doing it
Yeah.
for years.
Yeah.
Hasn't he? He's
How
been doing
long
it for
have
years.
you been doing podcasts for?
Since before I started university, like always recording stuff and, just going out there and chatting to people. And I did hospital radio and that sort of thing.
Yes, yeah, classic.
Which is, I don't know if that still exists anymore.
Well, I hear a lot of people say that they got into like this kind of world through hospital radio.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I think
They're fucking liars.
they
They're just coming for your story.
No.
Yeah.
I think the first time I came, no, maybe that was the second time I was on your podcast. I genuinely didn't know what hospital radio was.
I think kids out there now just think it's a radio in a hospital, which is kind of is. But it's the weird thing I find is it's only for a hospital. So there's like rules to what you can and can't say. Like we used to have very awkward moments. You can't play Frank Sinatra My Way because that's a good song to die to. Like you can't play anything about suicide. Just anything where it's death related.
Yeah.
There used to be a host that would constantly tie herself up in knots because she'd go, "Oh, I'm just dying to play the quiz later." Well, not literally dying, but I'm just saying, I really want to do the quiz.
Yeah.
And I just remember being like, "You're a fucking idiot. Like you can't mind what you're saying for 5 minutes." But it was fun. And you know what? The best thing about it is, like, you guys are all, young guys make their mistakes online.
Yeah.
I got to make my mistakes to fucking no one.
Yeah.
Like, no one was listening, so I could just piss around and do and say what I wanted. If I messed up, I just messed up.
Yeah.
And, the ill man in hospital probably died 3 days later. So, he's taking that to the grave with him.
And that's the last thing he remembers.
Yeah. And we were so fucking selfish. We were like, there were so many people who would come in and do shows and be like, think of the patients. Like, they went and walked the wards before and chatting to people, shaking their hands. Your song will be on in an hour, not knowing that every patient probably had a fucking iPod and was just listening to that song anyway.
Yeah.
So when iPods came along, it sort of killed hospital radio.
Did you just do it because you just had a drive and a passion to be heard?
Yeah, I really wanted to. I really wanted to be on radio. Like, I loved Chris Moyles when I was a kid. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. As terrible a person as he was, like I loved that he just had absolute control. He did. It sounded like he did whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
And to a kid who doesn't know about Howard Stern or like the American radio place. Moyles was so original to me and like was the godfather. He played the Howard Stern of England.
Right. Yeah.
And Ricky Gervais did the same.
Yeah.
So they were those guys who just went, fuck it, I'll say and do what I want.
Because much like me, probably not as badly as I do, but you have a lot of Gervaisisms in you.
Yeah.
That's what you call them.
Like
an illness.
It's better than saying you have a lot of Ricky in you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he did this
Especially
morning.
in here.
But no, why do you think, because this is something I've never really been able to pinpoint, because obviously I am a huge fan of it.
Yeah.
There's no denying it, but I'm a huge fan of a lot of things.
Yeah.
So why do you think that British people often do just sort of take on those sort of characteristics of specifically him?
It's so strange, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like there's a generation, because I don't feel like your generation, you're definitely younger than me, like, do the Gervaisisms. It's definitely
You're 12.
there's a not with that beard. There's definitely our generation who do the Ricky Gervaisisms, because the podcast and The Office were the first things that we saw, and we were like, he's funny, he's getting laughs. I was even saying to him, like, you made a generation of guys act in a certain way.
Yeah.
Like, I will almost deliberately sometimes try and make a situation awkward
Yeah.
so that I can go, oh.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I aim for sometimes. And I don't even realize I'm doing it sometimes.
Yeah.
And people get pissed off, but I don't think it really annoys my dad. Like, I'll try and make a situation awkward and be like, why are you doing this? Don't do that.
Yeah. It's like when you were telling that Rafa Benitez story, Alex.
Yeah. I was really trying to make it awkward, everyone. Yeah. I wasn't just fucked out of my head. No.
That makes it sound like you were on ketamine or something.
I was.
Fucked out of my
How
head.
do you know I got on the pod?
It is weird. But there's just this generation of men now who, though, he represents that generation of men and the sons of those men who are, like, not cucks, but like sort of middlemen. They're trying to be better. The sort of struggling generation of men who don't quite know where they sit in society.
Yeah.
You're either going to I gravitated towards two things: Fight Club and Ricky Gervais.
Right.
Like, I loved Fight Club as a film.
What was it about Fight Club then?
That's a good question. Do you? I mean, you've all seen Fight Club,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
it's one of your favourites as well, isn't it?
But I think I've heard you speak about this a little bit before.
Yeah.
And you've got good points, yeah. So my point was very much just me wanting to be an edgy teenager and going, yeah, Fight Club, I like Fight Club.
It is. It's an edgy film.
Yeah, but so what you seem like you resonate with it more. Why? How?
I think it came along at the right time for me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? When I was also part of that. You were probably part of that Jackass, CKY. Everyone had an Offspring hoodie generation. Everyone wanted to be a skater, sort of thing.
Yeah.
When people would actually go out and do skating instead of just sitting in the bedroom and wear the clothes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I got badly into it, and then Fight Club was like, I never wanted to fight. I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
But like, I love the intellectualism of it, which was like, no one had ever spoken to me about being a man in that way before. I don't think anyone does speak. like on YouTube, people don't really speak about being men unless it's like being a hyper macho man or nothing at all. And suddenly there was like this thing where it was like it all just fitted together. It put all the pieces together, and I just went, "Oh yeah, that does make sense."
So you're not very macho, but you got your macho through that, which is very much why you're good mates with Brian. Then.
Yeah, I don't quite. I mean, bravery comes in different ways, but for some weird reason, we on YouTube, especially for me, like online, people only recognise it if you're very overtly that thing.
Yeah.
Which we were talking about James Charles, like he's very overtly feminine.
Yeah.
And like Brian's a very overtly masculine. And so anyone
Put him in a room.
Yeah.
Brian literally just said it'd fuck him, and he said that James Charles is better looking than most of the women that he's fucked.
Yeah, I think you're one of the only guys I know that are actually right in that middle ground. Like, I get so many people ask me if I'm gay. Like, people I meet straight away, like, you probably are, aren't you?
And you go,
to be fair, I am often in the gay club.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
I'm not. Just sucking. But
Glory
yeah,
holes are strange, aren't they?
You're very much in the middle ground where, like, you can do like quite camp things. I'm not going to say quite gay things because what is being gay other than that?
Fucking men.
Yeah. No, but like
That is what it is.
Don't
Yeah.
make it an existential crisis. Like, Mum, I've got something to tell you. You're gay. But what is gay? Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
In a way, aren't we all
actually
gay?
mean?
Yeah.
No, but you know what I mean, like personality-wise, like
Yeah.
you can't just go, "Oh, you're obviously," and that's I get it all the time,
Right. Yeah.
And you obviously,
And obviously, I'm a macho man.
Yeah.
so-
yeah, you obviously get it, but I don't think you ever get either. No one's ever going to go, "Oh, yeah, you're really macho," but I'm
No.
also not going to go, "Oh, you're obviously gay." Like
No.
you don't get either.
I
So
just
you're
go,
quite.
I just look at you, go,
Yeah.
you're nothing.
Yeah.
You mean nothing to everybody.
I don't really know what you're getting at, but I'll take it.
That's what he said.
But the funny thing
Fuck's
is,
sake.
yeah, that's how he lives his life.
You're going to me. You're a straight man. That's what you're saying to me now.
No, because he was essentially
State the obvious.
saying that like that
There's a
kind
middle-
of there's
yeah.
the middle ground which you don't often see, and that's what Fight Club was.
You're mysterious, Jack. Yeah.
It was because people think like because you are not overtly masculine that therefore you must fall into the feminine category.
Yeah.
But as we know, in every generation there are loads of people who aren't either end.
Yeah.
And like very often it is the extreme people who will be the most visible. So those extreme people who are very masculine, like Brian's quite extremely masculine, and James Charles is extremely feminine. But that doesn't really represent like the whole spectrum of people. It's just the middle spectrum of people aren't going, "Look at me, I'm masculine," or "Look at me, I'm feminine." They're just going, "I'm just me."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's sometimes very difficult to form an effective identity out of that, which is fucking hard for a generation of men who are also told like, "Oh, women are this, women are that," and everyone's trying to tell you what to be. So for a cucky generation like ours, it's sort of
Yeah, it's great.
it was just interesting. Fight Club was like so overtly. It was at a time before mental health was spoken about in the way it is now, where the only way to speak about mental health is, I've had it, so it's sort of really it's really affected me, and I know about it, but it's
Yeah.
really personal. So mental health really, like the way that people talk about it now, really troubles me.
Right.
And I don't like it at all, the way that people speak about mental health. I think it makes me feel a bit sick. I won't click a YouTube link where people speak about mental
Because
health.
do you think people are? It's almost like that clickbait generation of people are profiting from it now. Or?
Yeah, like I'm not accusing anyone. It's
Yeah.
just that I feel a little bit like it's without sounding too much like fucking Prison Planet, it is a bit virtue signaling.
Right.
Yeah.
I've had mental illness and I can definitely help you. Probably not
We've
actually.
got it on
Yeah.
the latest. I do a podcast, another podcast, my mate, Love Podcast.
Yeah.
And we got a
The
question.
one you do in the
was like-
tent.
Yes, yeah. And people, the one we do in the tent. And we got asked the question, "Can you talk about mental health more?"
Mm.
We're like, "We don't want to." It's like, and it's also not a very fun thing to talk about all the time.
Well,
So-
I'm somebody who's never really suffered from mental health. I have issues like everyone does, but like I think when we say mental health, we're talking about the big players like the depression and the anxiety and stuff like that.
Big
which
players.
which I'm lucky enough to have not had.
Yeah.
Right. But like, why? If say I had, yeah. Isn't it so subjective? Isn't depression subjective? So if I had depression, I think it's
It's
probably
experiential is what I'd say.
Yeah, I'm echoing what
Yeah.
you were saying, but like just because I've had depression, I haven't. But say I had depression and I'd somehow overcome certain elements of it. That doesn't mean me telling you how I did it is going to help you
Yeah,
with your
not at all.
depression. Do you know what I mean?
It's a
Like-
completely different situation.
But for me, it's very different if a friend is speaking to a friend. Like but even then, I can sort of see why some people want to be the hero in that situation. Depression has sort of shaped a bit of an identity identity for them, for someone who hasn't particularly had anything terrible happen in their lives. Like, some people can just be depressed. You know what I mean? You don't have to have something awful happen to you in order to be a depressed person.
No.
And it sort of goes both ways. Some people go, well, you can't have depression if nothing's ever happened.
Yeah.
But then it also goes the other way where it's just a chemical thing. There's kind of it's like you say, it's very experiential, but I'm sick of hearing people in public go, I've had depression and I'm almost gonna monetize it.
Yeah.
That's the bit that I find hard, because it's also one of those things where you can't really tell if someone has had depression, or very often actually you probably can, but then they want to be the hero of depression. They don't want to be it's such a weird dynamic out there, and it's such a YouTubey thing.
It's a touchy subject, of course it is, and I don't want to belittle it. And I think you put it quite articulately then. But another thing I think about depression, and obviously this goes with that, like, I'm not saying this to anyone that has actually had depression, but I feel that if someone fucks up in life, which plenty of people do, and Logan Paul proved you can overcome the worst fuck ups, but it's so easy for someone to play the depression card.
Right? Or addiction, or whatever you want.
And this is going out to the people, obviously not the people that have it, I need to stress, but because you can never prove if someone has depression.
Technically.
Someone can fuck up and you can go, oh, right, we're going in on you for what you've done. We're gonna voice this mistake. And then they'll go, oh, I've got depression. And then you almost feel like, well, there's nothing I can do now.
It's like Dungeons and Dragons. I'm going to play the White Wizard. Do you know what I mean? And he's got depression. And you can't play anything back because there's nothing. Once someone plays that card, you've got to be hands off because you don't care if you. And that's not necessarily true.
I think we only get asked. We have been asked to speak about it a few times, but I think the way we get asked is to say, talk about it so people are aware. But people are aware. Everyone's aware. Like, we're not going to do anything good for it.
But you say that, if we're talking about ignorance towards mental health, I was fucking so ignorant towards it before I met Fiona, right? So I met her 4 or 5 years ago, and I will hold my hands up here. This isn't what I believe anymore, but I actually didn't believe that panic attacks existed.
Right.
Like, I was just like, oh, you're a bit nervous. Get over it, right? And then I met her, and she, no, that's how insensitive I was. I was a prick towards this topic.
Still a prick.
Yeah. And but I've learned a lot more now, And one day we were walking through. I'm sure she won't mind me telling the story, but we were walking we were walking through Covent Garden, and she said to me, "I'm having a panic attack," and I was like, "What?" It's like summer's day. Like, what's going on? What's on your mind? Like, is there a bigger issue? No, I don't know what it is. And then she just started uncontrollably shaking and had to sit down in the middle of Covent Garden, and I was like, fuck, this is a real thing. Like, so do you know what I mean? So I think sometimes, talking about it obviously does educate.
It's always hard to understand until you actually see it or feel it
firsthand.
Yeah, I used to get this during school. I used to just like start violently shaking, and then the teacher won't leave the class because the tables would just be going up.
Well, you were masturbating.
But...
I'm having another panic attack.
It was a mix of the two. But sometimes I get messages on Instagram and stuff, and people say that it helps them, but then also it's like, don't look at me, I can't help anyone.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I told you before, but I was doing a live stream once, and some girl came. You know how it goes like that. Just all the comments come flooding in. Have I told you? I don't know.
I know. What
And a girl posted on there saying, I just started reading a random comment. It just popped up, and she was like, "Oh, you've helped me, blah blah blah, whatever. But I've come to the end now. I'm gonna kill myself." And I'd read too much to stop it. I'd go, "I've come to the end. I'm gonna kill myself." Okay, she said that. So then I thought, right, there's no way I can ignore this now without seeming like an insensitive cunt. So I said, "I'll just drop me an Instagram DM and we'll chat it through." And then we chatted for a bit, and I was saying to Fiona, like, "What the fuck do I do here? I'm in over my head here. I'm just gonna say what I think you want to hear." "Oh, don't do that. Like, there's too much to live for." And then I just didn't reply for 2 days, and then she's messaging me going, "Even you don't care." And it's like, oh, what? So now I just have to constantly talk to you now, otherwise I'm worried that you're going to do something dodgy.
Yeah.
So like, it's a fucked up situation, and I don't think YouTubers are always the most educated.
They're not the most qualified.
No, definitely not. No. And it's weird because YouTube encourages you to talk about it. Like, they actually ask you to.
It's in YouTube Rewind, pretty much, isn't it?
But that for me in itself is like, that's fine. But again, it comes back to that like virtue signaling side of. Yeah, I get it. Like, I understand why we should be talking about it, I also think there's so many different aspects to it that it's so hard for one person to go about. Why is YouTube encouraging people who aren't really qualified to talk about mental health to talk about mental health? It's great to have normal people talking about mental health. It's great to have. I don't think I've ever seen someone, a psychologist, talking about it on YouTube. Maybe we had. There was a woman who came on the podcast once. I don't remember her name. And she was talking about it a little. But even then, like, it's such. There's situation, and. For me, I think the older you get, the more you see like the signs of it in other people, because everyone's had like felt anxious or something at some point in their life.
Yeah.
I think a lot of young men like do suffer with anxiety, and not knowing what to do about things, or when they don't feel in control, then they will have a panic attack or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't know what to do with it because they're also the model they see is that. You really only go to the very end of it where they're almost like, well, I'm anxious, therefore I'll be depressed in the end, and they almost don't stop it. Some people almost so want to go down that route because it's what they want in their life. They want some drama, they want some meaning.
Yeah.
And the anxiety gives you some sort of sense
so
of
you
meaning.
do see a lot of YouTubers play into it as well.
Yeah. I think a lot of figures play into it in general, and I don't know, I'm really fascinated at the moment. I watch so many Jordan Peterson clips. Do you guys watch
Very
Jordan?
interesting, yeah.
He's a really interesting guy.
Is this? Did Brian mention?
Yeah,
him?
yeah,
Didn't he? Yeah.
I think he's a really like interesting guy to listen to because he seems quite intellectually honest to me.
Right.
And he talks about responsibility and how I just don't think very many men in our generation try and take responsibility a lot.
Right.
And I mean, we're all part of that.
Yeah.
But I feel like you could deal a lot better with anxiety, especially if people took responsibility for something they actually knew about instead of trying to do, be the man who's everything or be this fake image. Take some responsibility for a real image.
I think
Sorry, that wasn't very funny, was it?
No, I think that. Yeah,
Did we come up with any other positive things to talk about?
I think that's a good time to go for a break, and then when we come back, we will lighten the mood by asking Laurence his top 5 dream podcast guests. See you in a bit. I can't talk. Welcome back to the Happy Hour podcast. Hopefully I can speak now because I had a bit of a meltdown before that. But we're still joined by the guys. We were going to just speak about this off camera. No point. We're doing a podcast. What's happened to Zoella?
So I was on Snapchat the other day. One of those like story things came up. And it
You
was
still
like,
use Snapchat?
not really.
Right.
I try and avoid it.
Just for the kids.
No. So there's an article comes up just says. Zoella avoids 2 years in prison.
Again.
I was like,
I avoided 25. Big deal.
Life. I put it in the WhatsApp group chat, and I was just like, Jack, what have you done now? Trying to get arrested.
So what was the actual story behind it?
So basically, a lot of YouTubers talk about people being fake and real and personas for the camera. Basically,
She sold this like calendar for her career.
Yeah, no, it's close though. As much as you're taking a piss.
They literally went, it's not illegal, but we feel like you deserve prison time. It's more of the sentiment of the judge.
It was all about the fact that she's obviously been doing advertisements, and the FCC looked into it and don't believe that she's been following the legal requirements, and they've been cracking down on social media influencers a lot recently for basically not telling people that they're doing brand deals.
#ad.
Is she still doing videos?
And she got a slap on the wrist.
Well, you haven't done one for a while, so I assume not.
Yeah. Got a slap on the wrist and told that they wouldn't put her in prison.
1-0.
Yeah.
Oh god.
I'm at 3-1.
I like how we just spent about 15 minutes talking about anxiety. So we thought, right, how can we get this back to a Jackmate video? What's Zoella up to?
Where's my Zoella grappling hook? Right, there it is.
She was critiqued, I'm pretty sure, once for like really playing up on the whole anxiety thing.
Was she?
Yeah.
All white people have.
Yeah.
Name a white person, they'll have anxiety. Do you know what I mean? And if anything, it'll be being white that makes them anxious. Do you know what I mean? I just don't know how to deal with it. I can't take it. Fuck off.
So yeah, I did.
It's true though, isn't it? Just name me a white person who hasn't had anxiety. Do you know what I mean?
How's Brian doing?
Brian.
Yeah.
Brian's had it. We've all had it.
He's
It went
a mess.
around. Do you know what I mean?
He left here crying.
Yeah.
Oh dear me. How did you meet Brian?
We met through something called the Football Republic, and
Okay.
we were Skyping, and both of us said we didn't really particularly be fond of the other.
Yeah.
And then we started quoting Gervais, and we were saying, "Oh, you like Gervais as well. You
Yeah.
like The Office. You like this. You like that."
Yeah.
And we started to find that they would edit out the bits that we thought were really funny of our, 10-minute videos. And one day he just called me and went, "I want to do a podcast. you seem like the kind of guy that would be good to do a podcast with. You got a bit of podcast experience. You know, we like a chat. Do you want to do it? And then we just did it. And you know, people hated it.
Did they actually?
No, they loved it.
The comments didn't take very kindly.
They didn't take kindly to me because it was so different to what people had seen on the channel before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been watching Brian since around must have been like 30,000 subscribers.
Yeah, just through his bushes.
So yeah, not his videos. Don't like those.
Yeah.
It was when I lived in Durham actually, when I wasn't stalking Rafa Benitez.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was when I first watched it, I thought it was a really good add-on the podcast, because I was normally used to him just doing all the Alan Shearer videos where he play FIFA on his second channel,
which was great. Like, that is a good product in itself. And you know, Brian had something really good going on, and I always say to him, like, you know, you just be somewhere else just doing really well, even if I wasn't here. And vice versa, everyone would just be having a good time.
Right.
But we're quite fortunate as to the route we've gone.
So
you know what I mean?
how did you deal with like those comments at the time, like the people saying like, why are you there?
Because Stevie's getting those now.
This is me. This is
Right.
literally me on this right now. I've known Jack 8 years. We've done plenty together before, but this is the first time we're doing something
but
full on together.
I think when Laurence and Brian do their podcast, yeah, they're a duo now. They've become a duo, and because they're chalk and cheese, I feel they're chalk and cheese. I feel it works. Whereas the reason why
we don't work.
No.
They went, that's Jack's jizz. Do you know what I mean?
No, the reason why I wanted you on the podcast is because Alex is
a loser,
the expert YouTube knowledge guy. He knows
Loser.
everything
a
about
loser,
YouTube,
yeah.
right?
I was right the first time.
So Alex is the person we go to hear the stories, right? I can give quite a scathing opinion on most YouTubers because I'm a cynical cunt that needs to grow up. And you
don't know a fucking thing.
You don't know anything, yeah, which
is quite good.
Which is really good, because then you lend yourself to ask the normal questions that someone wouldn't ask. So, for example, Alex tells a story about Keemstar. I'll go, Keemstar's a cunt.
And I say, who's Keemstar?
And then you say, who's Keemstar? Which then opens the way. So that is why you're there. And then if we have someone on like KSI, who everyone knows.
There is.
Yeah,
I don't know why I point.
I've had anxiety.
If we have KSI on, it's not necessarily your job to ask the questions then, right? Because everyone knows who he is. You do ask the odd one. But what people also don't understand is the podcasts get edited, they get cut down, so obviously the shit bits get removed.
So all of my bits get removed. That's what it
always
is.
get taken out.
I like my favourite part of this whole conversation is that it's never going to go anywhere. So this is gone. This is pointless.
Yeah, no. So that's why you're on, and I get a lot of comments asking why you're on,
Cheers, bud.
no, it does. It winds me up, because it's like not everyone on the podcast. It's not always got to be about them.
No, I do get a lot of positivity, to be fair.
Well, I wouldn't say a lot.
I do personally. They message me saying, what, Jack's a cunt. Someone actually asked me.
Is that
someone,
positivity?
Someone specifically tweeted me recently saying, can you call Jack a cunt for me? So that's the kind of stuff you get.
Go on and do
you
it.
don't owe them anything.
No,
though.
that's why I'm not going to do it.
Yeah,
he is a cunt, but not because of that person.
Well, you pretty much did do it, but
not
carry
for
on.
him.
Right, okay. You just done it for you.
But basically, obviously, you do get a bit of the whole, like, you are the sidekick type thing.
Yeah.
Nothing to me, just this is all you.
Yeah.
But, like, how does it, you just don't care, or?
I think, like, initially you do, because you're like, is this really how I want to be seen? Do I really want people to see me this way? People judge you by the company you keep, and it's like, so if people are judging Brian very harshly, they'll probably be inclined to judge me very harshly. After a while, you're just like, these are quite inaccurate. Or at the same time, you read them and go, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I'm working on that.
And also, when you look at all of them, they've all got footballers for profile pictures.
But even then, I'm like, you know what? Truth is truth. You know, wherever it comes from, it's still true. Like, you're annoying, Laurence. Am I annoying to you? Why am I annoying? Yeah, I actually know I'm a little bit annoying, but you know what? Everyone is at some point.
Yeah.
And to some extent, my role is to be an agitator of Brian a little bit and be a little bit like, nah. And some people get triggered because I go like, oh wait, women have value, and they go, what?
Yeah.
Hold on a sec. I need to be able, like, they don't like that you disagree with them.
Yeah.
And that's why why I quite like Jordan Peterson, because he doesn't seem to care about whether someone agrees or disagrees with him. He's cared about this sort of essential truth that's there.
Yeah.
And for me, that's something that YouTube is the opposite of essential truth. It's like everyone's cooking up these narratives, which is why you're so important in this, is because you get lost in this YouTube bubble. So if I explain, like, Logan Paul and KSI to my cousin who's 34 with a baby, she just goes, cool.
Yeah.
And then that's it. That's the conversation, because she's got no emotional investment in either of them.
Yeah.
She goes, "Oh, sounds a bit silly, doesn't it?"
Yeah.
And then you just move on.
Yeah.
And you don't really know. I'm not saying it is silly, because everyone's got their own little battles, but it's not this all-encompassing thing that affects the whole world. Whereas on YouTube, it can feel like that. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah, you just read that, you just get stuck in that area. And you just think, oh yeah, because I mean, I was reading through the comments, and they weren't exactly very nice about me on the True Geordie podcast. But I just read them through, and I was like, some people won't like me here, some people love me there. And I was like, if there's anything I could take from it, I'll take it and move it on to if I ever do another one, which I probably won't.
But then
You probably will.
Yeah, I believe that you're very chalk and cheese, you and Brian.
Yeah.
Right. And Brian is a bit more. I wouldn't say careless. He's a bit more like me, and he doesn't hold back on what he thinks. Right. So put it out there. Whereas I think you, as a presenter, you analyze what you're going to say. How often you have to draw him back quite a lot.
That's become a lot less my role, because Brian is now.
He's more aware now. He's more self-aware.
I guess. I mean, I don't really. I feel like he was already quite self-aware.
It was part of the joke, wasn't it?
Part of it, yeah.
Because that's why when I used to always watch it, I'd read the comments and go, do these people not understand the show that they're making?
Yeah.
And that was always my thing. It's like, oh, get rid of Laurence, he ruins it. It's like, no, Laurence makes the show. Like, they go up against each other, that's the joke. And I used to read it and be like, do people almost, because obviously when you go on like Netflix, you've got like a biography of what you're about to watch.
Yeah.
Whereas they just turn the True Geordie podcast on. There's nothing that says like Laurence and Brian are going to kind of go at each other for like an hour and like go for a middle ground. So I think they watch it and just go, well, I just want Brian,
which is fine. Like, that's absolutely. It's not my responsibility to then go, we don't want more of you, Brian. Can you just sit there and chat?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
That's weird, and it would also be weird if I just sat there and didn't question what he said.
Like him. Well, no, strangely enough, like your guys' podcast is actually one of the things I do watch on YouTube, because I find you guys, because I don't know much about YouTube, but like I think it might have been through you, or originally the football kind of content, but I think you bring so much humour and like your quick wit.
So many laughs.
That's that. Yeah, but that stuff like that. Like, that's kind of my favourite part of the podcast. And if you weren't there, I don't know if I'd enjoy it quite as much.
It's also that it's not 100% me all the time. Like, that's not the only me.
No.
Do you know what I mean? There are so many other aspects that I don't even talk about on the podcast. We're all normal people. We're all like normal humans.
We like
soap. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's got dark black hair.
But then having to sometimes rein Brian in and that, do you ever come to blows? Do you ever argue about things?
We've definitely argued about, like, morally a few things, or sort of, we disagree on all sorts of, like, do we agree on the way that Conor McGregor sometimes is in public? No. But that's part, like, we respect each other. I respect what he thinks.
Yeah.
And that's part of it, is that people, when you believe you're right, then that's really dangerous. You're like, you are stupid if you think you're right.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm right. And for some weird reason, people think I come in and go, right, I've got the 4-1-1 on this one, guys.
I think because whenever somebody's witty, like
in
Brian's
different
funny,
ways.
Brian's funny, definitely funny, but you're witty. I think when you're witty, and people often misconstrue that for arrogance sometimes, because it's quick and it's little. Do you know what I mean? It's in and out. Do you have to take out much of what Brian says in the content then?
No,
you don't.
I think he's I think, first of all, he doesn't really care what anyone thinks.
Yeah. Which is a great way to be on
great.
YouTube.
It's the best way to be on YouTube, in my opinion. Like, if you really do care, it's just going to really take you down a really terrible rabbit hole.
Again, it's the Dapper Laughs effect. I say it every single week. The moment you apologise, like for a joke or something like that, again, it's very Gervais as well, but you fuck it. And if you're unapologetic in what you believe and what you say,
people will accept it.
You can have a very unpopular opinion about stuff. You can say I don't think non-binary is a thing, right? You can, and if you stand by it,
you'd be 100% right as well. Those fucking idiots need to...
lads.
Yeah.
But you can say it. But the moment you apologise, you lose the core fans that back you for being like that, and that's why obviously Dapper lost a whole load of his audience.
Wow. Why? I mean, we can go into the multiple reasons why he lost a lot of his audience. You know what I mean? There's like,
I asked Brian this. I'll be keen to hear your perspective on it. But how did that podcast sit for you?
Oh, you got instead of just thinking your answer, you have to say it, Laurence.
I just really like his vines.
Yeah. But that's the thing is, I didn't agree with everything he said. But Gervais, it was, my main problem was that he was comparing himself to people like Ricky Gervais. And he was using comedy as an excuse for basically being a dick.
Yeah.
And it was unthought out. It was the lowest hanging fruit, and it was lazy to me. It was extremely lazy, and I don't like lazy content or unthought out content. So that really annoyed me. It just really got under my skin because I was like, oh, and people go, well, why'd you care? Let him do whatever he wants. And it's like, well, no, because when I'm going into meetings and people are saying to me, oh, you do, or your parents are going like, oh, you do that internet thing. That Dapper Laughs guy he's doing similar. And you're like, no, we're nothing alike.
Yeah.
Like we're nothing like each other.
I'm really not. I'm not like Dapper Laughs.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, YouTube has no regulator. And the fucking funny thing is, people are so quick to regulate you over your money and how you're earning it through ads, but they don't want to properly regulate things. And I'm not saying that regulation is the way to go, but they don't want to come in and go, should we have a little think about what we're doing here? Or most people just go, let's just put the camera on and see what happens. That's a little bit lazy, which is why podcasts are so popular, because you can just sit here and go, see what comes out my mouth.
Yeah. But then the good ones, don't know if we're in that category, but the good ones are the well thought out ones. You know what I mean? Because Marcus Butler, who used to be one of the biggest YouTubers ever, he has a podcast. I'm not saying it's not well thought out. I've not listened to it. Yeah, but
it's not in my suggested. Why?
Yeah. It's not. I don't think it's done great. And I saw on Twitter this morning actually.
Apologise for what he said about all of us.
What did he say?
He
says a bunch of stuff like INABA and Jack and that.
Well, he specifically mentioned me, didn't
a
he?
lot.
Yeah.
He mentioned you a
and
lot.
Fraser.
And he said, "Oh, Jack mate can be really, really funny, and I really like some of his videos, but some of them are like, and he's got a point. Some of them are cheap shots, but it basically
what he actually said was, I really like his videos on everybody who's not a friend of mine.
Yeah, basically,
which is again that sort of selective
For 15 minutes.
Yeah.
15 minutes of ranting about you.
Yeah.
Bad mouthing his friends,
but
essentially.
It's very selective, though, isn't it? That's the kind of thing that annoys me. Is it's like when people come at you, when you go at people, you better be good yourself. You shouldn't throw stones if you live in a glass house.
No.
But the problem is on YouTube, we're all
Throwing
busy
stones.
building a glass house, and everyone's busy while they're trying to put the first paint up. Going fucking have that.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm
it doesn't
throwing
work.
matches from a shed, basically.
Yeah, and that's fine. But there is this like moral. I'm morally better than you, or I've got it all worked out. Why don't you have it all worked out?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I do worry. Are we teaching a younger generation basically how to be judgmental assholes at some point?
Well,
Do you know what I mean?
I probably am.
That's all we do on this,
Same.
to be fair.
Simple question. You've probably been asked 100 times. Who's been not your favourite podcast guest? Because obviously you're a big fan of Gervais and whatnot. But maybe that is the answer. But who surprised you? What was a great podcast that you necessarily didn't imagine would be great?
That's a good question, actually. I can't even really think. I did think Dapper Laughs was quite good
Right.
in terms of content.
Yeah.
But he was fucking ignorant at different times. But having said that, we went out for dinner with him afterwards.
Yeah.
So we did go and just have a nice chat to him.
Yeah.
And he sort of went, yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. But people went, oh, they hate each other now. They really hate each other. And I was, who cares? Who cares even if we do?
Yeah. Yeah.
I quite like the sort of the strange ones. Sean Atwood was a very strange podcast, but maybe not my favourite of all time. I'm trying to think now. I really do just like when we just sit down and just get into something. Like there was a podcast we spoke about terrorism once, and it was really interesting to hear what Brian had to say about, being afraid of Islam or like Muslims and that kind of thing. And we didn't have contrasting opinions, but we actually found out like there's a lot of commonality between what we're saying, which is sort of why Tommy Robinson said a few weeks ago, like, he won't have me in his podcast because I'm too dangerous. He says he's got to protect his advertisers.
Who said that?
Tommy Robinson.
What about you?
Brian?
Right.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, of course, mate.
Would you have him on?
I personally would, but I also then look at our Ladbrokes deal and I go, well, is it really worth giving? If Ladbrokes go, why the fuck? I'm not saying they did, because I don't know.
But then again, I don't want to get into like the T's and C's of fucking advertising and shit like that. But you would obviously have contrasting opinions to Tommy Robinson. You're not going to get him on there and get him in a little headlock and go, "Oh, you old scamp! What about them
so
muzzies?"
funny,
You know what I mean?
But I also think we'd have so much in common. Like, I think there'd be so much where it's like, yeah, I do worry about religion, mate. Like, I do worry about people being fundamentalists.
Yeah.
That's fucking weird.
Not like you
Yeah.
do, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, exactly. But I don't sit there and go, they're all like that. They're all bloody. They all want to blow me up.
Yeah.
Do you know that's fucking that's stupid, or it's lazy.
Yeah.
Again, it's just lazy.
Yeah.
So I'd love to chat to him and go, yeah, I completely get where you're coming from. Like I am worried about old people being worried about things and British values or whatever the fuck a British value is.
Yeah.
Don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But he's done it in such a he's said it in such a toxic, horrible way that I'm like, well, we can't touch that, mate. It's not even necessarily half of what he says.
Yeah.
Just the way he puts it out there in his incredible fashion.
If you could have five podcast guests, dead or alive.
Bin Laden, Abu Hamza.
Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, Tommy Robinson. I'd just love to see them at dinner. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would just want to see what Abu Hamza does to him.
But we are gonna dissect each one like we did with Brian. As
Fine.
Well.
What did Brian say? Because I was sitting outside as he said that. And who the fuck said Frank Lampard? For dinner?
What was it?
No, this is for a podcast.
Podcast guests.
You're not having
okay.
dinner. Yeah, you're not
Right,
having dinner.
okay.
No.
I mean, sometimes I like dinner on a podcast.
Although still, Frank Lampard, very dull guest.
I feel like he's intellectual.
That's why I said I'd have him on. I said there's like stuff to pick at.
No, afterwards you said you panicked. You wanted John Terry.
Well, I originally was going to go for John
But
Terry.
if you saying that's why you want him on because he's intellectual, if you pin me down and went, you have to have someone who's intellectual, I'm not going to go, well, Frank Lampard's up there.
Exactly.
I'm starting to question what Alex brings to this.
I really
If
should
it's
have
Stephen
gone for
Hawkins, we could
rapper.
actually have 5 because we wouldn't have to get another chair.
Good point.
Brilliant.
But
We need another camera.
yeah,
true.
It's awkward, Stephen, because you've turned up and there's only 4 mics. So, it's going to take him half an hour to position himself, isn't it? So,
I think he's got a mic. Does
He
have
could,
a
yeah, he
mic?
could link up to the computer.
right, just
Plug-
he's
plug
Norks,
it
is what
in.
you're saying. Get the Orcs.
Yeah, just so you guys know, we're not getting Stephen Hawking on the podcast. He's dead, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that's the point.
This
You
is
can-
what I'm saying. When you get them on, they're not corpses. They talk.
Right.
They talk.
That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd
we're
be a
not
fucking
saying-
awful podcast.
Yeah.
John Elvis's skeleton on.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. About the same charisma. So, but Frank Lampard,
Yeah.
I don't understand why you've gone to there. But
Literally, just because of the fact that we was like the main footballer.
Is he
when
your
I was growing
type?
Up. No.
Right.
No,
He
'cause
supports
not-
Chelsea.
Obviously, yeah, I'm a Chelsea fan. So I
Surely-
just picked Frank Lampard purely because of the fact that I'd seen him play a lot of football, and I was like, it'd be nice to meet him.
What's his
It'd probably
job?
be a shit podcast.
yeah.
But I'd just be like, I met Frank
What
Lampard.
about Mourinho? Surely you'd rather have Mourinho than you would Frank
It'd be
Lampard.
more interesting right now, to be fair.
Just always.
Yeah.
There's never a time where I thought Mourinho's less interesting than Frank Lampard. Do you know what I mean? Those two lines have never crossed.
I forgot you are actually a Chelsea fan.
Yeah, I am.
So that does have a little bit more weight now.
Oh, I didn't just pick Frank Lampard
No,
for the
that's
sake
what I
of
thought
it.
you'd done, and I was just thinking of Frank Lampard as a Derby
I was
County
literally, I'm more
manager.
just like, yeah, because you said Derby County manager. I was like, no, it was more just like, he's a hero, so I just went for a hero.
That
Right.
makes sense.
So in that case, Jimo Traore, Salif Diao, Igor Biscan. Just so I can go, do you want a biscuit without Biscan? See what he says.
and I'll bring DiCanio around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, bring Di Canio
Fascism.
Again.
Let's chat.
back to the fascism. I'm always upset when you find out that someone who someone's politically the opposite of what you are.
Yeah.
Rachel Riley.
Is she?
I don't know.
She's a mess at the moment.
She's
What?
definitely.
What's happening?
So she's on Twitter quite a lot at the moment.
What countdown, Riley?
Constantly talking about anti-Semitism,
And I get it. Anti-Semitism
but
is
saying
a problem.
it's all on the left.
Yeah.
She's very right wing, so she's constantly
Is she
attacking.
right wing? Because I can't quite work
She's
it out.
She's constantly attacking the left at the moment. She's now got more security guards because she's getting a lot of threats online, and
What?
Yeah,
I didn't know this.
she's very pro Brexit, I think, as well. So
I'll
she's-
be honest. I can't quite work out because her tweets are so. You
Yeah.
look through it and you're like,
Yeah,
what is
okay,
this?
yeah.
Yeah, your message isn't clear.
But yeah,
It's very bizarre.
we're not watching Countdown anymore, basically.
No, we never did. But
Yeah.
it's very weird that
Because she had such a big input.
Why? I don't get why her. Why she? Why her? She had so much going for her.
Yeah, yeah.
She knew numbers.
Yeah.
It was interesting though because again, like the whole Jordan Peterson thing, he was talking about how people who are you can sort of tell from personality traits what political leaning someone will be. So very often people on the right will be much more sure of what they think. They will think in a very linear way, so they'll go from thought to thought to thought to thought. Whereas right wing people will move sort of forward through what they consider logical thoughts, and left wing people will have much more ranging thoughts. Not necessarily right or wrong, but just And that's why he speaks about the need for the mix of both, and why when you just get a left-wing government, things tend to go on. When you get a right-wing government, they tend to go the other way.
Yeah.
And how it's not about meeting in the centre.
No, yeah,
but it's about looking at approaches.
Yeah.
And personality politics doesn't.
No, that's
well,
exactly what my dad said to me once. I don't claim to know enough about politics, but that's exactly what he said. He said that when you get somebody who's on one side and then you have somebody who's campaigning on the other side, they just try and be as far away from that as possible and go, vote for me instead, because I'm the complete opposite. How about if you just want a little bit of what they're trying to give or offer? Do you know what I mean? Like, why is that not a thing?
Well, sorry, but it's also... It's also just you can be complimentary of the other person and be like, oh, they've made a good point there.
Yeah.
If anything, that makes you look fucking better.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's any YouTube beef. The best thing you can do is work out why the other person's nice and go, you're doing that really
I always
well.
find it weird when people will just literally hate somebody, especially when it comes to YouTube videos. Like I've turned on some YouTube videos and somebody's done something I don't agree with, and I've gone to make a video of it, and I'll say, oh, somebody else done it. I'll click on it, and I'll be like, Jesus Christ, you think they killed someone?
Yeah.
It was only 50 quid, Jack.
Yeah, but that adds up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That fucking adds up.
Yeah.
He's been thinking about that for a little while.
Yeah,
he had that one ready. Yeah.
Coming from you, though. Like, out of anyone.
So ironic.
Yeah.
Sitting with your tea and
Have we
Right.
heard any of his guests?
No,
yet?
we went into Brexit and then it almost got to
I'm so
Alex
sorry.
versus Kavos or some shit.
Kavos is a lovely place.
It's really not.
podcast guests. Who would I like? I mean, Ricky Gervais is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
I'd love some intellect. I'd just love to have some theologian people on, some people you can be like, do you believe in why does God exist or not? Like, I'd love some psychologists, some people who are just going to think with me.
Mm-hmm.
Some people I can just go, what do you think of this? And they're not just going to go, well, this is how it is, and that's the world.
Yeah.
Like, I want some people who are going to be able to just sort of, chat about a little bit. I can't give you actual names.
You have Jordan Peterson.
We're really
Absolutely.
after names there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Frank Lampard?
Yeah, Frank Lampard, Didier Drogba, Ashley Cole.
So far, I can't clickbait
Yeah.
general people.
Or Bill Shankly. You can't go down that route. I'm trying to think of a famous person who's actually interesting. I wouldn't like Donald Trump, for instance. Like, I think he's just fucking... He'd be a boring guest.
What about a dead person? Like, alive?
I wouldn't love all four of the Beatles, like them isolated. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I'd like them to be sort of, I'd do John Lennon.
Oh.
Probably skip McCartney. Ringo, probably.
Yeah.
And then George Harrison, just to get the neutral perspective.
Yeah.
Because there's so many, like, cool... He's probably the coolest one, but, like, the quietest one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you realise those are the best ones.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Are you trying to just big yourself up here because you're the quiet one?
No, I'm not. But I'm not the quiet one, am I?
No,
I don't know what I am, really.
Brian's really
Sort of-
big.
Yeah, bright. Yeah, and that makes you look small. Like you have the same thing. But who would you? But did you genuinely just say Frank Lampard and then go? That's it.
No,
Take it or leave
I
it.
said generally because of the fact I was like, obviously a Chelsea fan, and because of the fact that I'd be interested in what it would be like. Because I just watched the Sunderland Till I Die documentary,
Right.
And they're all quite clearly morons.
And he said Jack
Yes,
Rodwell as well. Why would you want Jack
I
Rodwell?
didn't say Jack Rodwell.
He said Chris Coleman.
just
He said the woman that works in the canteen. I was like,
did not.
okay, you've been on Netflix. We
I
get
don't, I
it.
don't think any of those people, but
Would you ever get a murderer?
That's what I said.
yeah, that's
Ted
how we ended
Bundy.
up on serial killers.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd go in.
What's your theory on the whole Bundy thing?
I think he killed a lot of people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's a good theory.
it's watertight.
What do you mean in terms of theory? Like, what does that mean?
As in just on him, or just in general.
Great guy.
I mean, in a way,
like we said,
he certainly had a charm to him.
well, yeah, that we said exactly the same thing on the previous podcast, but people are kicking off about this new film in which Zac Efron portrays him because it's glorifying him. But you both made exactly the same point. They're glorifying him because he was glorified. Like he was charismatic.
But they're not actually like glorifying him. I don't think what people don't understand is they're being like, this is what people thought of him.
Yeah,
and
they're showing what
editing,
happened.
They're editing the trailer that way to be like this is what people thought. I mean, if you actually watch the film, I'll be very confused if like he throws an axe like 50 meters and takes somebody's head off and he turns to the camera and goes like that.
Yeah, and it freezes and he goes, I suppose you're wondering how I got here. And it's like 50 women ago. That's what...
That would be amazing, though.
Would you not want Ted Bundy on? Would that not interest you?
I'd want him in a straitjacket or something. Do you know what I mean?
He didn't kill men. You're all right.
Yeah, you'd be right.
Yeah, but I'm worried about the women just sort of around. Do you know what I mean?
Do you often have women around?
This is the True Geordie podcast. There's
Yeah.
never any women around.
Yeah, exactly. Don't mind those strippers, Ted. Anyway, tell me more about the fucking time you were getting. Anyway, I'd have him, but I also think it's sort of patronising when we think people just watch content and go, "I've absorbed that. That's now how I'll act." Do you know what I mean?
Right.
We watch Ted. No, I don't watch Ted Bundy and go, "Sort of got a killing need now." Like that's not what I think.
Yeah.
I can critically evaluate it.
Yeah.
And if we're so worried about that, then spend a bit of money on educating people to be more critical of things. Do you know? It's not wrong to be critical of something. Anything you criticize and it cannot take the criticism, there is a problem there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that stands for, a charity that's doing cancer. If you can't criticize and go, so wait, where's this money going? And the people can't go, well, let me just explain. Then there's something wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's the same with Ted Bundy. We have to make him accountable. Do you know what I mean?
You've proved your point.
Yeah, but that's what the fucking law is for.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's there going, you've done wrong here, Ted. Like, that's bad.
Yeah.
Bad Bundy.
Would you have what?
Hashtag Bad Bundy.
Well, he's dead anyway.
I don't know. We done something much worse than glorified Ted Bundy. Then we memed Ted Bundy.
Dead Bundy.
That's
In a
what-
way.
Sorted.
Yeah.
Dead Bundy. Did you say?
Hashtag respect the dead. You know what I mean? I'd like Diana.
Would you?
No. Mohammed Al Fayed would be a good one.
Yeah.
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 I'd love Chris Morris. Do you remember Chris Morris, the guy who wrote Four Lions, The Day to Day,
Okay.
Brass Eye, that sort of
Right,
thing? I think
yeah.
he'd be really good.
Yeah.
And our generation lacks like that severe, cutting, surrealist idea of what the world should be, which was a very like 90s, late 80s, 90s sort of thing.
My dad always goes on about Brass Eye.
It's fucking amazing. It is incredible. And it's funny because weirdly, I feel like the real news watched that and went, oh, we could take little bits of that because it's not quite sorry. It's not quite Russia apparently and Putin like that do put out like bits of misinformation to confuse people as to what's true and what isn't, so they can't trust anything.
Would you have Hitler on?
Only if he promised to answer all my questions. Do you know what I mean? Because it's annoying when people dodge questions, and I go, I'd love to go to him like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? See if I could just pick holes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In his system.
Yeah.
It was quite flawed in the end, wasn't it?
He's
A little bit.
in the end. Do you know what I mean?
Throughout, it was fine. Last part.
He's an arsehole, isn't he?
Would you have Morgs' mum on?
I'd love. I find her charismaless, to say the least. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's such an interesting phenomenon, that.
I just don't give a fuck. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so
I look at her and I
weird.
literally go indifferent. Like I don't. Where'd you get all those subs from? It's not general interest, is it? She's not reviewing cars. She's not gaming.
No.
What is she doing?
I don't think she actually. My fear is she actually doesn't do anything.
Yeah, she
She
doesn't.
just stands there and then Morgs goes like that for 10 minutes and then he
Yeah.
uploads it to the internet.
Do you not think Morg? How old's Morg? Is he still 16? I just assume he's always going to be
Gonna be
16.
Like
16
Lisa
forever.
Simpson.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's always going to be like the most subscribed 16-year-olds for the rest of his life.
Is he not at one point going to go, it's getting a bit fucking cringy?
No.
I think he's making so
not?
much fucking money that he just doesn't care.
Really?
Money really subverts things, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's kind of YouTube. That's the answer to 90%. If you're like, I wonder why YouTube has done that, it's probably money.
Money.
Yeah.
Which is kind of that's a terrible answer. Do you know what I
So
mean?
yeah, because I'd be nice. Like I like to be pretty critical. If you haven't seen my channel, but like when I end up meeting most of these people, which normally does happen, and I ask them, "Why the fuck did you do that?" Money. And I'm like, "Wow, you are fucking boring." I was like, one day I just want Morgan's mum to go, "I've got a passion for the craft."
Yeah, I'd love that. And maybe my craft is inadvertently pissing people off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
And
mean?
I go, I can get behind that.
But do you ever think you're going to get to a point where you're going to go, fucking hell, I can't do this anymore?
Yeah, maybe that's why I've started doing more reactionary stuff, because sometimes I look at another YouTube and I go, brilliant. Okay, well, I mean, when I first started, I generally actually believed I was going to make a difference. How crazy was that?
That's why I think a lot of young reaction YouTubers they're young. Do you know what I mean? Because they think they can make a massive difference.
It doesn't ever happen.
I don't know if this is a bit egotistical of me, but I actually think I have made a difference.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you've pissed a lot of rich white people off.
Yeah. As much as
which I do get a bit of a dopamine hit from that.
You should, absolutely. Yeah, congratulations.
I think based on the way that all those guys' channels are dead, because that's what they are, and all
Jack didn't do that. I mean, Jack was part of that.
But it's almost. I've definitely said that when I speak to people now, the people who used to watch those guys, they've come to when they always mention who they watch now, it will be somebody like Jack or be you and Brian, because they just admire the fact that they're just more actual people,
real people.
Do you think like you were the Emperor's New Clothes, sort of the kid in the crowd that went, he's not wearing anything, so you were the one who went, he's not actually saying anything good, he's just drinking Barocca, like that was what your role was, and that's actually quite an important role.
But then it's also because I've called them out on a lot of things that I do believe in. I think it's made me a better person because it's kept me on my toes, and I could have easily slipped into the same mistake of what they've made. But because I could have easily gone, oh, what, £50 hoodie, lovely, right, cash in, ching, like that. But because I've called people out for that, I've gone.
This is one of the things that I've spoken to a lot of people about, especially my close friendship circle, is that they'll go, why wouldn't you do that? And then I'll go, so-and-so did this in 2012. This was the backlash that they got. I said, I do not want to go down that alleyway. I would not want to end up with those problems. No, that's why I won't do that. And they'll go, oh, it's 50 grand. And I go, no. It's like, I could do this. I was like, what if that ends my career there? And then I will never make anything for the next 5 years. I was like, I am enjoying what I'm doing, and I can avoid that. Like, I have a choice. And I think most YouTubers, a lot of people I speak to, they almost act like I have to do this. I have to make all this money.
I don't. I think I'm one of the few YouTubers who do it full time. That just when I just don't want to upload, I just won't upload.
Well, I know most of my friends, and I don't have a problem with this because technically you should do it. But if a video gets demonetized, they don't post it. I think I'm the only person in my friendship group who just goes public. I just don't care.
But do you think that's though also because you see the? I mean, that's a little bit strange in the first place sometimes because you've put all the effort into it. You made the video.
It's already done. Why would you not still
anyway.
upload it?
I would always just.
If I say I'm going to upload on that day and then I upload it and then I get demonetized, I care more about the fact that I promised that I was going to post that day.
Yeah, it's still
it.
Publicity as well. You're going to get more subs.
Why would you not? Yeah,
social capital.
Literally half of the videos I posted demonetized. Literally, like not literally 50%, but a lot of them are demonetized.
And sometimes I wait and like it will never get the ads back or something. So I've tried occasionally, and I could also just sometimes just go to YouTube and just be like, please fucking fix it. I guess, but I think for me it's like when I look at that, it's one of those things that keeps me sane.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why I do it. Like I always say, there's certain things that I always stick by, even if it's like inherently like going to cause me problems, like not making money. Because of the fact that I feel like I don't lose a part of myself to the fucking system, which I think can quite easily eat people up on YouTube.
I also think, again, it's back to that YouTube bubble where people don't quite know what's beyond the wall. So if I don't have YouTube, what do I have? Well, there's so much in the world. There's, people are like, Laurence is shit. It's like, so what? Like, so what? You think I'm shit? So do you really think I give a fuck?
That's just all the Arsenal fans, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mostly, although some of them are wrong. So sure, my world doesn't end with these four walls. YouTube's a big place.
Yeah.
The media is a big place. If I'm not on YouTube tomorrow, I can go out and get a job.
Well, I want to talk about this actually because it was one of the things when Jack said you were coming on. I take a lot of interest in your behind the scenes work.
Right.
Because I'm very impressed by the stuff that you do on XO, and I can tell that it's you who's mainly the person who's doing.
Because you know the other three.
But yeah, putting together. No, because it's quite obvious that you're putting together like your style of videos and stuff like that, and you quite obviously edit and do a lot of that stuff. So, is that what you started doing? Did you start off behind the scenes work?
So I've worked on YouTube for years, and the only reason I started doing presenting was because people went, we don't really have anyone else. Do you want to
hop in,
do the presenting? Which happens to so many producers and so many directors. And on YouTube, it was also a license to control the content as you're on it. So you're effectively directing as you go.
Yeah.
So if you're on a live stream, you're just directing. And now I have a massive benefit of an earpiece where I've got someone offering me options going, we could do this if you want. I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. Let's go and look at the Premier League table, or let's go and do this or do that.
Yeah.
And so it came from a place where I loved, always from like 14, putting videos together. And I downloaded a legal version of Sony Vegas and,
legal version.
Yeah. And, went down that route and really enjoyed editing. And there are loads of videos that I made that I just never put out. And my friend and I would just watch them and go, another great video done. You and I are happy with that.
What? And that never saw the light of day?
No.
I used to do the same thing, yeah. Football videos all the time.
Yeah.
And I used to just string together like football compilations with me and my mates.
And that's great. Like that, I learned so much from that. I learned how to like chroma key the sky out of things. And like, we made a whole video where we went to New York, but we were we stayed in Burton and we pretended Burton was New York. And like, we just chroma keyed the sky out everywhere. So we went to my local park and went, Central Park's fucking beautiful. Like, and there's just the skyline of New York in the background. And we like, that was us at like 15, just going, fuck it, we're just going to have a little fun. And now kids will like, I dread to think what would happen if, people saw my content at 18. I don't dread to think. I'll be like, yeah, well, I'm here now. You know what I mean? It was a stepping stone.
Yeah.
But so many people get cut off so early because people go, your content's shit now. And you're not going to change in the next 20 years. That never happens to a human.
Yeah.
Humans never change.
Yeah.
Once you're 20, you're done.
Yeah,
that's the rest of your life is fixed.
Yeah.
So much has changed in the last however many years for me. Stuff changes like that in real life and on YouTube. One day you'll have almost no followers. The next day you could have 100,000.
Yeah.
Easy come, easy go.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the fact that you've gone from behind the scenes to presenting? Was it something that you always wanted to do?
No.
It seems like you've done it accidentally. You've accidentally fell into it.
Yeah, it's definitely. I enjoy the podcast with Brian because that's where we could talk, and I could keep directing and do one day a week of just doing a podcast. That's absolutely fine. But it's also just that I do a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So with the Formula E thing, that I don't just present on that. Like I'm really trying to turn it into a YouTube show and work with our big crew to work, collaboratively with guys who mostly do TV to go, oh, maybe YouTube would try it like this. And those guys are learning and I'm learning at the same time. So that's an interesting process. But I also think I found I was really bad at collaborating with other people initially because I've been editing on my own. I think very often it's like the worry is leave your bedroom and things could all fall apart, or leave wherever you make your videos and things could fall apart. And you know this, and you know this, and you know this from doing the podcast. There's nothing better than going out there and at least trying it.
That's my thing now is just like if I get an opportunity, I vowed I'd take it. That's why I end up doing this.
Yeah.
So I had a podcast going and I said to my host, I said, because I went to America for 6 months, there had no opportunities there.
Right.
It was fucking boring.
Yeah.
And I was like, when I come back, I was like, I do everything, like whatever I'm offered. I was like, I want to just make sure that, because also like, I know a lot of YouTubers nowadays who don't edit their own videos and stuff like that. And they'll go, get an editor, get an editor, get an editor. There's nothing against that. But I always look at YouTube, like, as you say, like it could always fall apart. I'm like, this is one thing that I could actually have a skill in, I suppose, because most people could fuck around in front of a camera. And yeah, obviously presenting is a skill, but if I could have that added skill and all that stuff, I think it's useful, and I think a lot of people lose that nowadays, which is why.
I also realised not long ago, like my dad's a teacher, and people really do look down on teachers a lot. Like, because some teachers are shit. You know what I mean? Like, they've had bad experiences with teachers, but I was so lucky. I had so many good teachers. I'd like that last generation of teachers who taught to be teachers.
Right.
Sort of before it became this bastardized thing. And I don't know, maybe I didn't respect them as much as I should have back in the day.
Yeah. But I think that comes with age, though, because that's how I felt recently.
But imagine how fucking frustrating it is to be a teacher and some kids sitting at the back of the class going, go on then, tell me about this Khrushchev guy. What do you fucking do in Russia? And you're like, your tiny little peanut mind can't even work out what Khrushchev did in Russia. By the way, it's all on the fucking internet anyway. Go out and read it, you little prick. Like, that would be my... How would I not answer that as a teacher? How would I not... And people go, well, he's just telling me what to do. Well, then you're not looking at education in the right way, and you're not looking at your elders. England is a terrible place, and America's probably the same. For like looking up to your elders. And we tend to just go, old, boring, old, done. Like, that's... Imagine that. Imagine if Pep Guardiola had retired from football and people had gone, old, not a player anymore. Move on.
No one cares.
That would be
Nothing
so
to
weird.
learn.
Yeah. But we treat people so strangely in this country. I'm sorry to rant, but it is like, I really respect teachers and like people who can pass knowledge on so much more now. And I'm watching courses on. I was watching a course the other day, Martin Scorsese, Spike Lee, and loads of other guys just sitting there talking about their experiences. and that's like invaluable experience and chat that you can listen to and be like, wow, these guys really, they're passing something on here that's pretty profound. It's very rare you get like a profound.
You get a lot of that stuff in our industry as well. I think a lot of people go, Channel's dead, quite clearly nothing to learn from him then. It's like, no, you can always go back and find interesting stuff.
Also find out your mistake. Like, people want to ignore their mistakes. Like, there's the old Michael Jordan thing where he's like, I missed so many shots, but that's why I made so many game winners. And people like that who don't just see life as good and bad will probably go so much further than the people who just go, it's all fucked.
Yeah.
It's all fucked. Like, that's so fucking boring. That must be such a miserable way to live as well. I'd be so fucking bored if it's all fucked.
YouTube is Jackmate channel. So tune in.
You can't say that, Alex.
Week.
Alex cannot say that.
I can. I post some happy videos.
Oh, do you bollocks?
I've not seen one.
No, I haven't seen it. What's next for Laurence McKenna? What's
He's taking over the True Geordie
No,
podcast.
I don't want this to sound patronising, but
what do you do?
When you done when you done like the hospital radio and stuff like that, you obviously wanted to be heard. You wanted to have a voice. You have that now. What's your dream? Are you living your dream? Like,
kind of.
Yeah.
But it's not really finished. Like,
Right.
I'm only 30.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And on YouTube, people go 30, done. Memeless the other day in a video went, probably a paedophile if you're 30. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Brilliant.
And I was like, yeah, he's got a good point. Like,
You are a paedophile?
no, he's got a good point. Like, you look like
That's where he's going.
Yeah.
people hanging out with younger kids, older men hanging out with younger kids can look really weird.
Yeah.
Like, can look really, really strange.
Yeah.
And even appealing to those people, which is why, like, kids' TV presenters can look a bit creepy
Yeah.
sometimes. You know
That's
what I
our
mean?
only issue with having Alex on. Because we do
I
look
make
a bit
everybody
Nazi
look like
next
a
to him.
paedophile.
Next to you.
How old are you?
I'm 20 next week.
You're not even 20.
No, I know.
How old are you?
25, same as Jack. Good luck.
I always forget that you're 19.
I know. I forget sometimes.
That's horrible.
I
That
spend all
explains
my-
You're
I spend-
horrible.
Well, I spend all my time around 45-year-old men, so
Do you?
We're 25.
it was a joke.
Oh,
about
I thought
paedophiles.
thought you've been hanging around with Keemstar again.
How old is he? I don't know how old he is.
What Keemstar?
Yeah.
He's actually 48.
He's not really, though.
No,
He doesn't. Oh, right, okay.
no.
I was going to say, I was like, wow. You've suckered me in there, Jack. Well done. Just bigger, just projects.
Bigger
do you know what I
number,
mean?
yeah.
I want to direct. I want to direct more stuff. This was very much like people are probably so bored by all this now. I have personal goals. Fucking accept it, all right?
I want to do whatever I want.
People probably clicked on this going, he's going to absolutely savage Robbie for the next half hour. I'm so sorry. I thought it was going so much better than it did. But we'll just do another one another time. This has been great. Yeah, thanks.
Nice one, man.
God, really good.
See you next week.
See you again soon.
Brilliant. I love that.